You've probably heard the news. The IPF Executive Committee has changed the rules of the bench press. Notably, the rule change is quite convoluted, so I'll do my best to explain. Effective January 1st, 2023, powerlifters will no longer be able to set up with their feet on the bench pad, and the lifter must lower the bar to the chest or abdominal area where the underside of the elbow is level or below the top of the shoulder joint. The intended effect of these rule changes is to minimize the hate received by the IPF due to the occasionally broken world record by an athlete who demonstrates a minimal range of motion and a high arch. The IPF has clarified this rule is supposed to help increase public appeal to the sport of powerlifting. This sounds great in theory, however, there are many problems with the implementation and the implications of these new rules. First, this rule change sets a bad precedent. Last year, the IPF member federations voted to give up their rights to vote on rule changes. Removing the democratic process regarding a rule change is a bit scary, as it sets a precedent for what we may expect moving forward. Thus, the decision was not voted upon by member nations, and if it were, it would have likely failed to receive a majority vote. Many sports federations have fallen because of the lack of democratic centralism in their organizational structure. The less democratic an organization is, the more likely that the leaders of that organization become disconnected from their core audience, resulting in resentment, fractioning, and inevitable collapse. Number two is that this presents much more difficult judging. The new rules will make it incredibly difficult for judges to officiate, especially at the international level where the gray area for these types of rules is incredibly wide. Thus, our reliance on the jury table and video review will likely increase, and the total meet length will increase substantially. Powerlifting is slow enough. Increasing wait times between the squat, bench press, and deadlift surely is not the intended outcome of this rule change, though it must be considered. Number three, fewer available judges. Many judges are already considering quitting due to this undemocratic rule change. Less available judges lead to fewer competitions. Fewer competitions result in less audience reach. Less audience reach means less sport growth, at least on the competitive levels within the IPF. Number four, targeting the outliers. The IPF expects this rule to impact at least 5% of IPF lifters. There is no official number I could find on the total athletes competing in the IPF, but let's just say there are 20,000 lifters in the IPF. 5% of 20,000 means that a minimum of 1,000 lifters will need to change their technique to meet the new requirements. Ripping the carpet from underneath even 5% of lifters is too many. For some, powerlifting is their life. Athletes spend thousands of hours perfecting their craft, hoping to make it to the world stage. Some of these lifters are anatomically advantaged. If this technique was so damaging to the sport, then why is it not universally applied at the elite level? And number six, powerlifting is fragmented enough. The IPF is already struggling to maintain its members within the USA due to its recent split with the United States Powerlifting Association. If the IPF wants to grow the sport, it must spend more time researching the key factors preventing growth from happening. The justification for this rule change is arguably thoughtless and disconnected from reality. Nobody is saying, I won't compete in powerlifting because there's too much arch and not enough range of motion. Number seven, anatomy is not universally homogeneous. Certainly, some powerlifters may intentionally exploit the rules to minimize range of motion. However, more commonly, lifters will arch their lumbar to help maximize upper back and shoulder stability. More stability leads to both lower injury risk and more potential force production. Forcing a handful of lifters to change their technique could eliminate them from contention at the international level. Imagine eliminating 7'1" basketball players from competing because watching them raise their arms and dunk the ball without jumping is less relatable to the audience. Sport is not fair. Rules don't make lifting fair, they make it more exclusive. Some athletes are simply born with superior leverages, and they should be able to take advantage of them. Powerlifting is about lifting the maximum amount of weight possible for one repetition. Yes, it can be frustrating to see some lifters bench press with less than 1 inch of range of motion. However, neither the process nor the justification for this rule change is worth the likely consequences. If the rule is maintained, I'm afraid that the IPF may face the same fate as many other federations before it. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to send me a message on Instagram, share it with your friends, and let me know what you think. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.